Hi, I'm back. Gee, I hope you're back too. Okay, Nita, we are on page 142, and we are still at the high meadow. Like they're walking through the high meadow, remember? Say, what were they doing last? Say, oh yeah, they were talking about how their classmates came every day after school to help make that beaver dam. So where'd we get to? Ella pauses, then quietly says, yeah, community activities. I remember that after church, we would have those potluck picnics there in the churchyard, sometimes up here. James would love that. He goes to church activities all the time. Thomas looks sideways, gets a scrunched up nose, says, yeah. Barbara is always inviting me to join the church picnics. She sure is faithful about going to those outings with our kids. Well, she goes regular to church, too. Ella looks at Thomas and says, James does, too. Even when he's traveling, he says he can always find a church meeting house. Thomas gets serious and says, well, we had our fair share of activities right here at my ranch. Uncle Charlie made sure of that. Ella smiles with delight as she says, especially the Christmas ball. That was a wonderful annual event here at my ranch. Ella looks sideways at Thomas and asks, I don't remember. Do they still have it? Thomas thoughtfully replies, I don't know. I haven't been here for a couple of Christmases. We can ask Bruce. Ella recalls with a sigh, me neither. Well, I do know that Jack and Martha always came to those balls, all gussied up and beautiful. Thomas adds, and Jack and Martha always come and stay in the guest house in September. He loves the autumn time up here. Ella jumps right in and says, and Martha loves the spring, so they come in May or June, whenever the flowers are blooming. Then Thomas stops. Ella notices he has gone into his research mode. That's a look he gets on his face. She waits and then asks, so, what are you thinking about? I can see your brain churning with some kind of an idea. Thomas takes off his hat and scratches his head and says, just something Bruce said last night. How Mom and Dad were different yet worked together, and now realizing how Jack and Martha are different and yet they work together to work things out too. They always have a peaceful feeling about them. Ella quickly agrees. Oh my, you're so right, Thomas. They sure do smooth things over easily, even though they have different opinions on how to raise their kids. You know, we played enough with their kids, so I noticed that. Basically, they want the same thing. Just then, Ella notices Jack by a nearby bush and excitedly says, look, Jack is chasing a rabbit around that big bush. Oh, Paul, you must get that on film. He quickly turns his camera in the directions that she is pointing. They all watch Jack and the rabbit for several minutes until finally it looks like the rabbit is chasing Jack. Everyone chuckles over that until they are really laughing out loud because this goes on until the rabbit actually catches up with Jack. They are laughing so hard that Jack stops dead in his tracks. The rabbit bumps right into Jack and then scampers off across the meadow. Ella laughingly asks, Paul, did you get all of that? Paul grins and quickly replies, I sure did. Jack slowly makes his way to Ella for a rewarding cuddle and a petting from each of them. Champ has been contentedly eating away on the meadow grass, paying no attention whatsoever of Jack out in the meadow. The group then turns their attention back to the meadow. Ella looks at Thomas and wistfully says, I wonder, remember that blackberry patch? Maybe it's still there in that grove of trees. We had ever so much fun picking those berries for Maria to make her favorite jam. Oh, Thomas, may we go there? Thomas scans the horizon, looking to the west, trying to remember where that cove of trees was, or is. Ralph has the camera on zoom scanning the westerly direction where Thomas is looking, and soon he says, "Hey, could this be it?" Thomas comes and looks at that camera viewfinder to see what he found. Thomas, "Hey, sure enough, that looks like it." Then getting his bearings without the zoom, Thomas says, "That's pretty far, Ella. Do you really want to walk all that way? We have a hike today, you know." He looks at Ella, who doesn't hesitate one bit as she answers, "Well, if you say it's too far, then we won't go." She says this with total acceptance. Thomas thinks for a moment, then says, "According to Bruce, we have all the time in the world, and we don't have to hurry getting back to the ranch. So, why not? It would be nice to have some fresh berries for lunch." Ooh. Ella giggles, her little girl giggle, and gives Thomas a full body hug. Well, at least her part of full body. She's a little bit of a thing, you know. Ralph and Paul look at each other, remembering that just a few days ago Thomas was gung-ho to get back to Portland and his job. They grin at each other. Ella picks up Champ's lead rope, and just as they turn to head for the west, Paul sees a snake and calls out, "Watch out, there's a snake right there!" Jack isn't even fazed by Paul's conversation and just heads out for his own adventures. Thomas quickly looks and smiles and says, "Oh, that's just a racer. He won't hurt you. He's not venomous. He's just out hunting. He lives in these grasslands and hunts for insects and rodents during the day. Now, don't you go stepping on him. He's the good guy. He eats those flies that bother us so much." Ralph warns Paul, "Do watch out for those rattlers. They are venomous." Thomas quickly speaks up, "And they only strike when confronted. When you see one, just walk slowly away in the opposite direction and you," Ella interrupts him, "my dear brother, are sounding just like Uncle Charlie." She smiles in admiration. Thomas shrugs one shoulder and says, I guess I do. Well, he taught me all about the snakes in the area. Nice to know I remember something he taught me." Then they head out toward the berry bushes, heading west. Paul remembers something he wanted to ask Thomas, and so he does. Are those rattlers the 7-foot snakes I overheard you talking about yesterday?" Thomas smiles and says, "No, not at all, not at all. Rattlers in this area get, maybe 2 feet long. The longest one they've found is 45 inches. Oh, Paul says, "Whoa, that's pretty darn big for me." Ralph, of course, says, "That's small compared to what we have in Texas." Thomas smiles and says, "That's just why I brought it up over our 7-foot rubber boa." Paul anxiously says, "A boa? I know that one. They can strangle you to death." Thomas chuckles and says, "Well, that may be true for the Amazon boas. Not our little guy. He isn't as big around as, Ella's arm. He only preys on woodland rodents. So you're safe." "And another reason you're safe, Paul, is because they live at the 7,000-foot level, and we're only at 6,300 feet. Ella is impressed that Thomas is remembering so much about what Uncle Charlie taught him all those years ago. As they're walking, Ella sees a wildflower and quickly says, "I know your name. Uncle Charlie taught me that. You're a lupin, a silky lupin, and a beautiful purple blue. Oh, Paul, please come get a picture of me with this flower." Ella crouches down by the flower, tenderly touching the petals and the leaves as she holds on to her Queen Elizabeth hat. Ella apologizes. "I know it's a girl thing." Then she gets teary-eyed and admits, "I just remembered my mother." Ella quickly stands up and looks around the meadow, astounded at what she's remembering, as she loudly proclaimed, "She was here with us in this meadow, Thomas. Mother was here. It was Mother who taught me the names of the flowers, not Uncle Charlie." Thomas looks around, seeing his parents in his mind's eye too, and says, "I forgot they were here." Ella happily walks to another patch of wildflowers. Remember when she walked from flower patch to flower patch with her mother, learning about the meadow flowers. Thomas walks along, remembering his time with his father in this meadow, throwing a baseball or a lasso or hunting for insects. He had quite a collection of insects. Dead and dried, that is. Ella breaks his train of thought, cheerily asking, "Thomas, you're good at this, just like Mother was. What's the name of this flower? It looks like a baby orchid to me." Thomas walks over, thinking for a moment, then answers her, "Oh, I believe that's called the blue columbine." Ella is now in flower mode and makes sure Paul gets a picture of her with each different flower she finds as she goes from flower patch to flower patch. Next, Ella asks, and this one, Mother would know. Ella's kneeling down next to some pink blossoms, and she says, "They look like an elephant's head." Thomas doesn't have to think about that one. Yep, you're right. They are called elephant's head. Well, actually, their true name is lowswort. Paul is impressed again with Thomas's knowledge of meadow life and quietly says, "Very impressive of you." Then looking around the meadow, Paul continues, "So, you know all the flowers and snakes in this area?" Thomas looks around the meadow, surprised himself as he says, "I think I do. Uncle Charlie noticed that I like to research things, and he gave me books to bring along so I would have something I like to do when we came here or were on the trail ride." Never thought much about that. Mostly only remembered that Ella got all the dance lessons she wanted, and Uncle Charlie never missed one of her plays. I guess he did take an interest in things I liked too. Looks like he always tried to be sure we both had what we needed for whatever we were interested in doing. Guess he did things for me too, and I just didn't notice. Ralph, the practical one, interrupts. All this flower hopping, right? We'll never get to the blackberries." Ella stands up and laughs, saying, "You are so right. I would really miss not getting those berries. I promise not to bother Thomas anymore. I'll just enjoy them all for what they are. Wonderful wildflowers in my meadow." She holds her hat on her head as she twirls in a little circle in the middle of a flower patch. Not dramatic, just a little girl having fun in the meadow. Paul enjoys filming this moment with her. Thomas, who is in research sharing mode, adds, "Well, we don't have as many flowers as a wildflower capital has." Ralph is curious and asks, "And where is that?" Thomas replies, "In Crested Butte, Colorado." Ella quickly says, we may not have as many as they do. I'm sure ours are just as beautiful." Then off they go again, heading toward the berry bushes. As they continue to walk toward the cove of trees where they hope to find the berries, Ella keeps her word, only stopping occasionally so to have Paul take a picture of her with a different type of flower. Not bothering Thomas at all. Sometimes she even knows the name of her flower, like herself, like the echinacea. Some folks call it the coneflower. It's a pretty purple daisy-like flower with a brownish yellow center. Ella quickly tells Paul, "This one is herbal, and Maria uses it a lot in her herbal teas, so I remember this one. I have helped Maria gather them many times." As they are walking along, Thomas does let her know how that here in High Meadow, spring is just getting started, even though it's late June. And he quietly says, "In fact, July is a prime time for wildflowers here in the Rocky Mountain meadows." As they are getting closer to the cove of trees, Jack comes bounding back to join them. He has ran the perimeter of the meadow, and now he's content to just walk at their pace. It really doesn't take long before they're near the cove. Looking back, Jack checks to see how far they are from the camp. Sure enough, they've walked a little over a quarter of a mile. The meadow is about 2 miles long and a couple of football fields wide, so they did good at not walking too far. Although it will need to be a faster walk back so they can make it in time for lunch. Ella is tickled pink when they come across flowers as they are almost at the blackberry bush, and she delightedly says, "Oh, it's just as I remembered." Then glancing at the bushes, she noticed something and says, "It must be a bit early for berries. I don't see any peeking out at me. It's June. There should be some someplace. Paul speaks up. Or the bears have gotten them already. Ella looks at him. Oh, you're right. The bears love those too. I'll just be grateful to find enough for a few for lunch. Thomas quickly tells Ella to wait. You stop. Then he looks at Jack and he simply says, bear. That's all he says. And Jack takes off like a bullet, sniffing the area. Please, Thomas says, do not walk any closer or touch the bushes until Jack has checked out the area. He's a great protection for us. Then we'll know whether we stay here, go back to camp, or go in and get some berries. Well, that's it. That's it for today. Oh my goodness, yes, that's it for today. So, well, thanks for joining me. I'll put a little marker right in here. Ta-da, and we'll see you next time. And so you have a lovely weekend with your family. I'm sure you can plan some service projects so you and your family are out doing what Jesus would do. And remember, Jesus loves you, and so do I. Bye-bye from Grama Jean.